You are standing in the grocery store, holding a bottle of vitamins in one hand and a box of cereal in the other, and somehow both of them are promising to fix what plain food used to prevent. The cereal says heart healthy, the drink says immune support, the snack bar says protein, the bottle says digestive health, the frozen dinner says balanced. The pharmacy aisle says energy, sleep, joints, sugar, pressure, cholesterol, memory, inflammation, and every other fear that keeps an older American awake at night. And then you look down at the receipt and realize something strange. You are paying more for the promise of health than your grandparents paid for the food that quietly gave them strength. My name is Caleb Schwartzentruber. I am 68 years old. My family comes from the old Amish and Mennonite communities of northern Ohio, and I have spent most of my life collecting the practical things older farmers, churchwomen, widows, gardeners, butchers, bakers, and Depression-era families knew before every kitchen problem had a pill-shaped answer. Now I need to say something plainly before anybody misunderstands me. I am not a doctor. I am not telling you to stop medicine. I am not telling you to replace prescriptions with soup, vinegar, cabbage, beans, or any old recipe. If your doctor gave you medicine, talk to your doctor before changing anything. Food is not a magic cure, and old kitchens were not hospitals. But here is what I am saying. There are old foods that help families stay steady, nourished, regular, strong, and satisfied, long before every ordinary discomfort became a product category. Not because those foods were mystical, because they had fiber, minerals, protein, fermented cultures, slow energy, real fat, broth, greens, beans, vinegar, herbs, and common sense. Those foods are not usually profitable enough to advertise. Nobody makes a fortune telling you to cook beans, make broth, eat cabbage, save whey, or put apple cider vinegar into slaw. Big Pharma may not literally ban them, but the whole modern health industry does better when people forget that the first layer of health often sat in a plain kitchen. Years ago, my grandmother Ruth kept a gray notebook beside the stove. It had recipes, but it also had little remarks. Good for winter weakness, settles the stomach, for hard work days, after sickness, for old bones. She never wrote like a medical textbook. She wrote like a woman responsible for feeding people who could not afford to fall apart. So today I am going to walk you through 25 old Amish, Mennonite, and Depression-era food recipes that many modern industries would rather you treat as old-fashioned nonsense. They are not miracle cures. They are not medical advice. They are practical, nourishing recipes that helped ordinary families build health from the stove upward. If you have diabetes, kidney disease, heart disease, high blood pressure, food allergies, digestive conditions, or any medical restriction, use wisdom and talk to a qualified professional. The old people respected limits. They did not brag their way into trouble, and if your family made one of these differently, leave it in the comments. Some of the most useful kitchen medicine in America is still hiding in the memories of people who never called it medicine at all. The first recipe is chicken bone broth with onion, celery, and a little vinegar. Ruth did not call it collagen. She called it stock. After a chicken dinner, the bones, skin, neck, back, and wing tips went into a pot with onion ends, celery leaves, carrots if she had them, salt, pepper, and a small splash of vinegar. It simmered low until the water turned golden and smelled like Sunday had come back for Monday. That broth became soup, gravy, dumplings, rice, beans, and sick-day drinking broth. It gave minerals, warmth, salt, and comfort when somebody had no appetite. It turned scraps into nourishment. The supplement aisle now sells bone broth powder, collagen jars, electrolyte drinks, and expensive wellness pouches. But old kitchens made the foundation from what was already paid for. Cool broth quickly. Refrigerate it, freeze it, or pressure can it with tested instructions. Do not leave it sitting around, but do not throw away bones and then buy nourishment in a plastic tub. Number 2. Fermented sauerkraut with cabbage and salt. A clean crock, shredded cabbage, the right amount of salt, pressure from a weight, and time. That is the old way. Cabbage becomes kraut because salt draws out the juice and good fermentation takes hold. Old Amish and Mennonite tables often had some kind of sour food beside heavy meals. Kraut with pork, pickled beets, chow chow, pepper cabbage, vinegar slaw, Sour cuts, fat, and wakes digestion. Fermented foods also bring living cultures when made and stored properly. The probiotic industry would love you to believe gut health only comes in capsules with shiny labels. But your grandmother may have kept a version of it in a crock. Do this safely. Use tested salt ratios. Keep vegetables under the brine. Watch for mold. If it smells rotten, toss it. Fermentation is powerful, but it is not a place for guessing. Number 3. Bean and ham bone soup. This is one of the great old health recipes because it does 3 things at once. Beans bring fiber and slow energy. The ham bone brings flavor, so you need less meat. The broth turns it into a meal that satisfies without needing a pile of expensive ingredients. A widow named Esther near Sugar Creek told me, beans kept more men working than steak ever did. She did not mean steak was bad, she meant beans were dependable. Soak the beans if needed. Cook them properly. Add onion, bay leaf, carrot, celery, a ham bone, pepper, and only enough salt after you know how salty the bone is. Cook until the beans are tender and the broth thickens. The processed meal industry hates a bean pot because one bag can feed a household for days. If you have kidney disease or need to limit potassium, ask your doctor about beans. But for many families, beans are not poor food. They are steady food. Number 4. Oatmeal porridge with apple, cinnamon, and nuts. Before breakfast became boxes of sugar wearing a health claim, older families ate oats because oats were cheap, filling, and slow. Ruth cooked rolled oats with water or milk, a pinch of salt, chopped apple, cinnamon, and sometimes walnuts if there were any. It was not glamorous. It stayed with you. It gave fiber, warmth, and a feeling that the day had a floor under it. Modern breakfast companies sell clusters, bars, pouches, sweetened cups, and cereals that cost many times more than a plain bag of oats. Then the health aisle sells fiber back to the same person. If you need to watch blood sugar, be careful with sweeteners and portions. But do not let anybody convince you that breakfast has to come in a bright box to be healthy. Number 5. Vinegar cucumber onion salad. This recipe is so plain that modern people walk right past it. Thin cucumbers, sliced onion, vinegar, water, a little salt, a little sugar if desired, pepper, and thyme in the icebox. On hot days, old farm tables use sour salads to cool heavy meals. Vinegar brightens the mouth. Cucumbers bring water. Onions bring bite. The whole dish costs very little and makes fried or salty food feel lighter. The bottle dressing aisle sells tang, sweetness, salt, and oil in 100 disguises. This old salad makes its own dressing in a bowl. If you are watching sodium or sugar, adjust it. If onions bother your stomach, use less. But remember the principle: acid and vegetables can make a meal feel alive without buying another bottle. Number 6. Dandelion greens with bacon vinegar dressing. In spring, many old families watch the yard like a pantry. Dandelion greens, when picked young from clean ground that has not been sprayed, were washed carefully and dressed with hot bacon fat, vinegar, a little onion, and sometimes a touch of sugar. Those greens were bitter, and bitter is something modern diets nearly erased. Bitter greens can wake up a plate that has become too soft, too sweet, and too processed. A Mennonite gardener outside Baltic told me, spring tonic was mostly just greens after a long winter. That is not magic. It is the body getting fresh leaves, minerals, and sharp flavor after months of stored food. Be careful with forage greens. Know what you are picking. Avoid sprayed lawns, roadsides, and places animals use. If you take blood thinners or have medical restrictions around greens, ask a professional. Old wisdom begins with not poisoning yourself. Number 7. Beet kvass or pickled beet drink made carefully. Some Amish and Old World kitchens use beets in sour preparations. Beets, salt, water, and fermentation can make a tart drink sometimes called beet kvass in other traditions. Pickled beet juice was also saved and used at the table. Beets bring earthy sweetness and deep color. Sour beet preparations were used as a sharp, mineral-rich drink or condiment. Ruth did not make govas often, but she saved beet brine for eggs and salads. Today, the wellness aisle sells red powders, nitric oxide boosters, and beet drinks in plastic bottles. The old kitchen version was slower and cheaper. Use tested fermentation guidance. People with kidney stone issues or oxalate concerns should be cautious with beets. And remember, this is food, not a cure. but it is a fine example of how old kitchens turned roots into strength. Number 8. Cornmeal mush with milk or fried eggs. Cornmeal mush may be one of the most forgotten American health foods because it is too humble to impress anybody. Cornmeal, water, salt, cook slowly until thick. Eat it soft with milk, butter, apples, beans, greens, or eggs. Chill the leftovers, slice them, and fry them the next day. It is cheap, filling, and honest. It gives the stomach something steady without requiring a factory. Breakfast companies trained Americans to pay dearly for flakes, bars, protein cups, and sweet pouches. Cornmeal mush does not advertise. It waits on the shelf like a quiet worker. If you are managing blood sugar, pair it wisely with protein and watch portions, but do not despise plain foods. Plain foods carried many families through hard years. Number 9. Cottage cheese with garden herbs and cracked pepper. Before protein snacks came in little plastic cups, old farm families knew the value of fresh dairy. Cottage cheese with chives, parsley, dill, cracked pepper, and a little salt could become lunch with tomatoes, cucumbers, rye bread, or boiled potatoes. It is simple protein, easy to chew, and gentle for many older people. Ruth served it in summer when the garden was giving more than the stove needed. The protein industry has made people believe strength comes in bars, powders, and shakes. Sometimes those have their place. But a bowl of cottage cheese with herbs is still food your body recognizes. If you are lactose intolerant, watching sodium, or avoiding dairy, adjust. But the old lesson remains. Protein does not have to be a product with a silver wrapper. Number 10. Apple cider vinegar slaw. Shredded cabbage, carrot, onion, apple cider vinegar, a touch of oil, salt, pepper, and maybe a spoon of honey or sugar. That is all. No heavy bottled dressing required. This slaw gives crunch, fiber, and acid. It sits well beside beans, pork, potatoes, sandwiches, or fried fish. It makes a heavy plate feel cleaner. The diet industry sells cleanses. Old kitchens served cabbage. Do not turn vinegar into a miracle claim. It will not magically erase a poor diet, but acid, fiber, and raw vegetables before or with a meal can help many people feel satisfied with simpler food. That alone can change the way a household eats. Number 11. Potato soup with onion, celery, milk, and parsley. Potato soup is often mocked as poor food. That tells me the person mocking it has never eaten good potato soup. Ruth cooked potatoes with onion and celery until tender, then mashed part of them into the broth, added milk, pepper, parsley, and sometimes a little butter or bacon grease. If there was a ham bone, that went in. If there were dumplings, even better. Potatoes bring potassium and satisfaction. The soup brings water, warmth, and a gentle meal for tired bodies. The canned soup aisle sells comfort in metal cans, but potato soup from your own pot can be cheaper and better. If your doctor limits potassium, potatoes may not be right for you. But for many families, potato soup is not empty. It is a soft, steady meal made from almost nothing. Number 12. Garlic honey for the table. Not as a miracle cure. Some old households kept honey with garlic or onion as a winter table remedy. They might take a spoonful, stir it into warm water, or use it over food. Honey soothes. Garlic brings strong flavor and old reputation. Together they feel like winter courage. But let me be careful. Do not give honey to children under 1 year old. People on blood thinners, people preparing for surgery, and people with medical conditions should ask before using large amounts of garlic. This is not a replacement for medical care. Still, there is a reason old kitchens leaned on garlic, onion, honey, and warm drinks when the weather turned mean. They were affordable, available, and comforting. Big wellness bottles may be new, but the instinct is old. Number 13. Barley vegetable soup. Barley is one of those grains that deserves more respect. It thickens soup, brings chew, and makes vegetables feel like a full meal. In old kitchens, barley could stretch beef broth, mushroom broth, chicken broth, or plain vegetable stock. Add onion, carrot, celery, cabbage, garlic, bay leaf, barley, and broth. Let it cook until the grain swells and the pot turns hearty. A little meat is welcome, but not required. Barley has soluble fiber, the kind modern packages love to brag about. But in an old soup pot, nobody needed a front label claim. The food did the work quietly. People with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity should avoid barley, but if you can eat it, barley soup is one of the cheapest ways to make a cold day feel manageable. Number 14. Liver and onions for people who can tolerate it. Now, I know half of you just made a face. Liver is not fashionable. But old families did not eat liver because it was trendy. They ate it because it was nutrient-dense, affordable, and available when a butchered animal was respected nose to tail. A retired butcher near Mount Hope told me, "The liver was never waste until people got rich enough to be picky." That line stayed with me. Liver brings iron, vitamin A, B vitamins, and strong flavor. It should be eaten in reasonable amounts, not every day. Pregnant women and people with certain conditions need medical guidance because too much vitamin A can be harmful. So no, liver is not for everyone. But the pill aisle sells nutrients that old families sometimes got from food because they did not waste the animal. Number 15. Stewed apples with cinnamon instead of packaged dessert. Peel apples if you want, or leave the skins if they are clean and you like them. Slice them into a pot with a little water, cinnamon, and maybe a small spoon of butter or honey. Cook until soft. That is dessert. That is breakfast. That is something to spoon over. Oatmeal, pancakes, fried mush, cottage cheese, or plain yogurt. The snack industry wants sweetness to come wrapped in plastic. Stewed apples give sweetness, fiber if you keep some peel, and comfort without needing a factory cake. If you watch blood sugar, skip the added sweetener and use smaller portions. But do not underestimate fruit cooked slowly. It can make a house smell like somebody still cares. Number 16. Soft-boiled eggs over greens or toast. Old kitchens used eggs wisely because eggs could turn scraps into a meal. A soft-boiled egg over wilted greens, toast, potatoes, rice, or leftover vegetables brings richness, protein, and satisfaction. It is not complicated. Boil the egg to the doneness you prefer, keep it safe, and serve it over something plain that needs help. Pepper, salt if allowed, maybe a little vinegar or butter. The protein breakfast industry sells expensive morning solutions. An egg over yesterday's potatoes is still a solution. Use safe egg handling, especially for older adults, pregnant women, and anyone with a weakened immune system. Cook eggs fully if needed. The old lesson is not rawness. The old lesson is using a small food where it does the most work. Number 17. Fermented sourdough pancakes. When a starter needs feeding, do not throw all the discard away. Old cooks made pancakes, griddle cakes, crackers, and quick breads from it. Sourdough pancakes have tang, tenderness, and a deeper flavor than plain batter. Mix starter with egg, a little fat, salt, baking soda if needed, and enough flour or liquid to make the batter right. Cook on a greased griddle until the edges set and the bubbles tell you to turn. The box pancake industry wants breakfast to feel impossible without powder. But starter, flour, and an egg can make a breakfast that feels alive. Keep starter clean. Throw it out if moldy or discolored. But if it is healthy, use it. Waste is often just food waiting for an older recipe. Number 18. Chicken and vegetable dumpling stew. This is different from thin soup. This is a meal in a pot. Chicken bones or leftover chicken, carrots, celery, onion, broth, maybe peas, and simple dumplings steamed on top. It gives protein, vegetables, liquid, and comfort. It also stretches chicken better than almost any modern meal kit. One small bird can feed a table when broth and dumplings join the work. Ruth made it after Sunday chicken when there was not enough meat left to impress anybody. Nobody complained once the dumplings landed. The delivery app wants tired people to believe comfort must be ordered. A dumpling pot says comfort can come from flour, broth, and patience. Number 19. Buckwheat cakes with molasses or apple butter. Buckwheat is not wheat, despite the name, and old Pennsylvania and Amish-adjacent kitchens use buckwheat cakes as a hearty breakfast. They have a strong, earthy flavor and keep a person satisfied. A stack of buckwheat cakes with a little molasses, apple butter, or stewed apples can feel richer than modern sweet cereal. Buckwheat brings minerals and fiber, and it was valued because it grew in places and seasons where other crops could be difficult. If you have allergies or dietary restrictions, be careful, but do not let modern pancake culture make every breakfast white flour and syrup. Older grains had character because older lives required stamina. Number 20. Red beet eggs. Pickled red beet eggs are simple country food. Hard-boiled eggs placed in beet brine with vinegar, spices, and thyme in the refrigerator. The whites turn pink. The yolks become rich against the tang. This is protein plus acid, color, and preservation for short-term refrigerator use. It made a good side for cold suppers, church tables, lunches, and days when the stove did not need to work hard. Do not shelf store them unless you are following tested canning guidance, and many egg preparations are not safe for home canning. Keep them refrigerated. Use clean jars. Eat within safe time. The snack aisle sells protein bites now. Old tables had beet eggs. Number 21. Split pea soup with carrots and ham. Split peas cooked down into a thick filling soup that feels almost creamy without needing much cream. Add onion, carrots, celery, bay leaf, pepper, and a ham bone or a little smoked meat if you have it. This is fiber, protein, warmth, and thrift in one pot. It is also one of those foods that tastes better the next day, which is a quiet blessing for people who do not want to cook from scratch every evening. The canned soup industry can sell you a small can for what a whole pot might cost at home. That math should bother every fixed-income household. Again, if you have kidney restrictions or trouble with legumes, use caution. But for many people, split pea soup is old-fashioned strength. Number 22. Yogurt or clabbered milk with fruit, made safely. Before flavored yogurt became a dessert cup with a health halo, cultured dairy was plain, sour, and useful. Some families made clabber, yogurt, or sour milk products depending on their milk source and tradition. Plain cultured dairy with apples, berries, cinnamon, or a spoon of oats can be breakfast, dessert, or a gentle food after illness. It brings protein, calcium, and live cultures when properly made. But milk safety matters. Use proper temperatures, clean jars, and reliable instructions. Be especially careful with raw milk. Older adults, pregnant women, children, and immune-compromised people should be cautious. The probiotic drink aisle sells sweetness and cultures together. The old kitchen knew sour first, sweet second. Number 23. Rye bread with caraway and onion. Rye bread is heavier, darker, and more honest than soft white sandwich bread. With caraway, onion, or sourdough, it has flavor that makes a thin slice feel like food. Old families use strong bread because strong bread carries simple toppings. Cottage cheese, egg salad, bean spread, butter, apple butter, soup, kraut, or a slice of meat all sit better on bread with character. The soft bread industry wants bread to vanish in your mouth so you eat more of it. Rye makes you chew. Chewing is not a flaw, it is part of satisfaction. People with gluten restrictions should avoid rye. But if you tolerate it, a loaf of rye bread can make cheap meals feel sturdy. Number 24. Herb broth tea after heavy meals. Some old women made warm drinks from mint, ginger, chamomile, or simple broth after heavy meals. I am grouping these carefully because herbs affect people differently. Peppermint tea may feel soothing for some stomachs. Ginger has long been used for nausea. Chamomile was used as a calming evening drink. Warm broth gave salt, fluid, and comfort. But herbs can interact with medicines. Some are not safe for pregnancy, blood thinners, reflux, or certain conditions. So do not use herbs carelessly just because they are old. The modern wellness aisle sells calm digestion and sleep in expensive boxes. Sometimes the old answer was a warm cup, a quiet chair, and a body allowed to settle. Number 25. The Ruth notebook plate. This last one is not a single recipe. It is the pattern behind all the recipes. Ruth used to build what I now call a notebook plate. One slow food, one sour food, one green or root, one protein or bean, and one small comfort. Beans with vinegar slaw and cornbread. Potato soup with rye bread and beet eggs. Chicken broth with noodles, cabbage, and stewed apples. Oatmeal with apples and cottage cheese. Split pea soup with pickled beets and a slice of dark bread. She did not count macros. She did not talk about inflammation. She did not sell a cleanse. She built plates that kept people working, digesting, healing, and feeling human. The health industry wants everything separated into products. Fiber here, protein there, probiotics there, electrolytes there, sleep support there, joint support there. But old kitchens often put the pieces together in meals. That may be the biggest secret of all. Health was not one miracle ingredient. It was a pattern repeated day after day by people who could not afford to be careless. Now, let me tie this together. The title of this video says, Big Pharma will not admit these recipes are healthy. That is a sharp way of saying something ordinary people already feel. The modern system is very good at selling treatment, supplements, packaged wellness, diet programs, and fear. It is not nearly as interested in teaching older Americans how to feed themselves with broth, beans, greens, cabbage, oats, vinegar, fermented foods, simple dairy, eggs, barley, apples, and old-fashioned plates that satisfy. Again, food is not a replacement for medicine. If you need medicine, thank God it exists. Many of the old people would have loved access to good doctors, antibiotics, insulin, safe surgery, blood pressure medicine, and modern emergency care. Do not romanticize suffering. But do not surrender your kitchen either. There is a first layer of health that belongs to the household. It is the layer of fewer ultra-processed meals, more fiber, more soups, more fermented foods made safely, more vegetables, more beans, more slow breakfasts, more real broth, more sensible portions, more leftovers used wisely, and more recipes written down before the person who knows them is gone. That layer will not fix everything, but losing it has cost families more than money. It has cost confidence. When an older person believes health only comes from a bottle, a clinic, a subscription, a packaged plan, or a product with a claim on the front, that person becomes easier to frighten and easier to sell to. But when you know how to make broth from bones, kraut from cabbage, soup from beans, breakfast from oats, strength from eggs, comfort from dumplings, and family memory from a cheap notebook, you stand differently in your own kitchen. You are not helpless. You are not waiting for every answer to arrive in a package. You are practicing the old first step: feed the household well with what you have. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Pick one recipe, not all 25, just one. Make a pot of bean soup. Start a small batch of vinegar slaw. Cook oatmeal with apples. Save bones for broth. Ask an older relative how they made kraut, dumplings, beet eggs, or potato soup. Then come back and leave a comment with the recipe your family used to make, especially if it came from a mother, grandmother, church kitchen, farm neighbor, or Depression-era household. Because once this knowledge is gone, the modern health industry is happy to replace it with something expensive. But if enough of us remember, practice, and pass it on, the old kitchen is not gone. It is still there, waiting for somebody to put a pot on the stove.